I was sipping my favorite hibiscus tea while listening to my favorite radio station. The soft melodies filled the room, bringing with them a flood of memories of times spent with my beloved husband, Bento, who left us years ago. We were inseparable, shared dreams and built a life together. Our love gave birth to our son, Victor, who is now a handsome young man with his own business, a hardware store that he inherited from Bento. Every object, every corner of the house, carries with it a piece of the precious memories we have of Bento. I fondly remember the happy days when we were a close-knit family, with Victor still a baby in our arms, filling our home with laughter and love. These memories warm my heart and make me smile, even in the face of the longing I feel. Even though Bento is no longer physically by our side, his spirit and his presence live on in every gesture of kindness, in every success Victor has achieved. And as I sip my tea, I'm grateful for every moment we shared and every lesson I learned alongside him. It seems like yesterday, but these memories are treasures that I will keep in my heart forever. Mom, are you home? It was Victor. Hi, son, come in. What brings you here so early? Mom, I want to tell you some news, he said happily. Of course, my son. Sit down here. I'll make you some coffee just the way you like it. Tell me what happened. Mom, I got engaged to Emma, he announced. I looked at my son, proud and happy. It was a special moment, seeing my son grow up and take this important step in his life. My eyes filled with the news. Finally, my son was going to marry a wonderful girl he had met. That moment reminded me of when Bento asked me to marry him. I was so happy about that proposal at the time, and now my boy is getting married. It was a mixture of nostalgia and joy to see history repeating itself with my son. Victor was very anxious and I immediately said, "My son, take care of Emma like your father took care of us before he died. Make Emma happy." He looked at me with his eyes full of tears and replied, "I will, Mom. I will, I promise you I will." His words filled my heart with emotion and confidence in their future. Victor then invited me to join him, his fiancée and her parents for lunch at a very charming restaurant nearby. Of course, I didn't hesitate to accept the invitation. "Yes, my son, I will. I'll look forward to this lunch," I replied with a smile on my face, feeling happy for the opportunity to get to know Emma's family better. Victor then said, "Mom, I'm just going to tidy up a few things in the store and I'll pick you up at lunch, okay?" I nodded in agreement and replied, "My son, you're welcome. Yes, I will. See you later." With a nod, he walks out the door, leaving me with a mixture of joy and anticipation for the lunch that was to come. So, that morning, I started getting ready for that special lunch. I carefully chose a beautiful dress from my closet. I wanted to look impeccable for my dear son's important day. I perfumed myself with my best perfume. I wanted to make a good impression and show how happy I was for him. When Victor finally arrived at the door and asked, "Mom, are you ready?" I replied with a beaming smile, "Yes, my son, I'm ready. Let's go." So we headed for the restaurant. When we got there, I saw Emma, radiant as ever, and her parents, who were visibly pleased to meet me. I was very well received by everyone, and over lunch we took the opportunity to get to know each other better, sharing stories and laughs, creating bonds that further strengthened the union between our families. It was a moment of joy and celebration, and I felt grateful to be there, witnessing the love and happiness of my son and his fiancée. I could see the joy on my son's face when he saw his fiancée and all of us together at that special moment. It was clear that this step was important for all of us, not just for him and his beloved, but for the whole family. After a lovely lunch full of smiles, we said a warm goodbye to everyone and Victor took me back home. That afternoon, when I got home, we started preparing for the wedding. Together, we reviewed the guest list, chose the venue for the ceremony and reception, decided on the details of the decorations and food, and discussed all the other important aspects to ensure the day was perfect. Every moment was full of emotion and meaning, and I felt a mixture of happiness, nostalgia and pride as I watched my son embark on this new journey in his life. It was the beginning of a new era for him and for our whole family, and I couldn't wait to witness every moment of this exciting chapter. I made a point of preparing everything so that this day would be special. After all, it was the realization of a dream for me to see my son build his family. Finally, the big wedding day arrived. Everything was ready. I dedicated myself day and night to organizing every detail to ensure that nothing was missing from this very special moment. From the impeccable decorations to the carefully selected menu, I wanted everything to be simply incredible. My anxiety and excitement grew by the minute as I prepared to walk Victor down the aisle. Dressed in an elegant suit, my heart was pounding with joy and anticipation for what was to come. I knew this would be one of the most memorable moments of our lives, and I was determined to make the most of every moment. I was ready to witness my son celebrate love and embark on this new journey alongside his beloved. I couldn't wait to see the bride and left my son waiting at the altar while the guests arrived. I decided to take a look at Emma to make sure everything was perfect. As I opened the door, I heard voices coming from inside the room. It was Emma talking to her mother. The conversation seemed tense and I could pick up a little worry in their tone. Emma said something that caught my attention. "You know it's for you." Without wanting to intrude, I entered and asked with concern, "Emma, is everything all right?" Her mother, Lucia, replied promptly, trying to calm the situation, saying that everything was fine and that Emma was just anxious to get married. Even though I didn't fully understand what was going on, I decided not to go into it at that moment. I told her that the guests were arriving and that Emma should get ready to meet Victor at the altar. I stood there, admiring her beautiful wedding dress, wishing that everything would go well. Everything went well. The wedding was simply wonderful, with the whole family coming together for a unique moment. Seeing my son now married filled my heart with pride. However, even with all the happiness of the event, the episode of the argument between Emma and her mother still echoed in my mind, leaving a shadow of worry. A few days later, my son returned from his honeymoon with his wife. He needed to return to the store to resume his duties, while Emma would take up her post as wife, looking after the home and her husband. I went on with my life as usual, until the fateful day when the pipe in my old house burst, leaving it completely flooded. It was the same pipe that had given me problems years before, and now the problem was reappearing. Without hesitation, I called my son, Victor. "My son, the pipe has broken again. Ask your Jose to come and have a look," I asked, and he promptly called the plumber. Jose then suggested that I leave the house immediately, as the situation required a complete overhaul of the plumbing. I felt desperate, not knowing how to deal with the situation. That's when my son arrived and, sensing my distress, asked what had happened. I explained the situation to him and, without hesitation, he promptly offered me shelter in his house until everything was sorted out. At first, I was reluctant to accept, as I didn't want to disturb my newlywed son, but faced with the need, I had no choice but to accept his generous offer. So I arrived with my clothes in a suitcase and was warmly welcomed by Emma, who already knew about the situation. She put me up in one of the guest rooms and I felt welcomed by her and my son. While the work was going on in my house, I was able to spend a few days and get to know my daughter-in-law, Emma, better. We had a wonderful time together. I taught her some recipes that Victor liked, and we got on very well, until one evening when something intrigued me. We were all in bed, or so I believed, when an aluminum mug fell to the floor, making a slight noise, but enough to wake me up. I tiptoed downstairs and saw Emma in the kitchen, her back to me. Without her noticing, I watched her making tea and pouring a colorless liquid into it from a little glass she kept in the pocket of her robe. That caught my eye and I called out to her, which startled her. "Mother-in-law. Are you awake?" she said, visibly flustered. I asked her what she was doing and she replied, still nervous, that it was just a cup of tea for her. I told her that everything was fine, but I was a bit startled because I thought it was my son who was in the kitchen. That scene intrigued me. My motherly heart was warning me that something was wrong. I went back to bed and tried to sleep, but those images of the kitchen kept coming to mind. When dawn broke, we were having coffee and Emma, kind as ever, offered me a cake. We ate it together, but I couldn't help asking her about the tea she had made the night before. "Did you sleep better after you had your tea?" I asked. Victor, my son, asked in surprise, "What tea, Mom?" "Emma hates tea." That answer intrigued me even more. Emma quickly replied to Victor, saying that she was drinking a tea to lose weight. Victor, always helpful, simply said that he wanted her to be well. As a mother, I became even more suspicious of that scene. The tea episode the night before and everything that had happened at the wedding didn't fit together in my head, but I was determined to find out what was going on. I decided to pretend that I wasn't suspicious and took advantage of an opportunity that made me happy. Victor invited Emma to dinner in the evening. He asked me if I wanted to go too, and I said no, that he should enjoy the evening with his wife, and that I was going to bed early that night. So he said goodbye to us and went to work. I spent the whole day with Emma, disguising my eagerness to look for that little bottle and find out what was inside. That's when the moment finally arrived. Victor left with Emma, my heart racing. I made sure they were leaving when I heard the sound of the car. I anxiously went upstairs after that little glass. I went to Emma's pink robe and it wasn't there. I looked carefully in the drawers, everywhere, until I opened her closet. I saw a long winter coat and put my hand in it, then happily pulled out that same little glass from the night before. I realized that the bottle had no label or name, but I thought I'd take it to a man in town who could find out for me what the liquid was and what it was for. I took a small cap, put a few drops of the substance in it and put it away to find out what it was in the morning. The day arrived and I set off early in the morning in search of the man who could help me. I knocked on his gate and his maid answered. "Good morning, ma'am." "What are you doing here so early?" she asked. I replied that I needed to speak to your Firmino. She agreed to call him and I waited there anxiously. When he arrived, I greeted him and explained my question. He took me to his botanist and showed me a plant. He tested the mysterious liquid and revealed that it was a poison. If administered little by little, mixed with tea from a common herb, it could be put in any drink. When I heard those words, my heart froze. My daughter-in-law had a poison. I hurried home and, before my son and daughter-in-law even got up, I went into my room and became desperate. How could I tell Victor this? I needed more proof. That's when I decided to take a closer look. During breakfast, I saw that Emma was preparing a vitamin for Victor, the same as every morning with fruit, but she was preparing an individual glass. "Can I have some of that vitamin?" I asked. Emma, her eyes wide, replied, "No, mother-in-law, this is Victor's medicine, isn't it, love?" Victor soon replied, "Yes, Mom, this vitamin has some medicine in it that I take in the morning." Then I became more curious and apprehensive. My daughter-in-law was poisoning my son. How was I going to prove it to him? I needed more proof before the worst happened. I decided to go back into Emma's room while she went to the market to do the household shopping. Carefully, I opened her closet and rummaged through some folded clothes. It was then that I saw a letter, carefully tucked away, in which her mother said, "Daughter, don't worry, I'll be there for you. I know you don't like it and don't want to marry Victor, but we need that store in our family. Your father has longed for that store for years, ever since Benedict was alive. The two of them were friends, but after Bento died, your father would like to run his business. But to make it happen quickly, I'm going to give you a recipe for a poison. Give it to him little by little, mixed into a drink. When the worst comes to the worst, it will be too late and you, as a widow, will inherit the store." When I read those words, my heart froze and a mixture of anger and sadness came over me. My daughter-in-law really was planning to poison my son in order to inherit the store. I had to act quickly before it was too late. With the letter in my hands, I ran into the store and found Victor attending to a customer. He was surprised to see me there and immediately asked if anything had happened. With trembling hands, I asked him to come and talk to me in private. As soon as he had finished with the client, we went into his office. "Son, read this letter," I said, handing him the piece of paper. "I've been suspicious for a while, but I needed more proof to show you." When Victor read the contents of the letter, he was heartbroken. His expression was a mixture of shock and disbelief. After a moment of silence, he made a firm and determined decision. "Mom, we need to call the police. This is too serious to let go unpunished," he declared sternly. I agreed with Victor's decision. It was time to act and ensure his safety and that of everyone involved. Together, we called the authorities and reported the situation, thus beginning the process of dealing with the terrible revelation about Emma. As soon as we arrived home with the police, Emma was taken aback and her countenance turned to despair when she saw the letter in my hands. She cried copiously, expressing her regret, but it was too late. Now she would have to face the consequences of her actions, just like her parents. Victor, although heartbroken by his wife's betrayal, felt a sense of relief at escaping the mortal danger he was facing without even suspecting it. He hugged me tightly, showing his gratitude that we had discovered the truth in time. With the outcome of this terrible situation, we returned to our normal lives, but with a feeling of gratitude for having escaped this deadly trap and for having faced this challenge together, further strengthening the bond between us. The moral of the story is that, as much as we trust our loved ones, it is essential to be alert to the signs and follow our intuition when something seems wrong. Sometimes the truth can be difficult to accept, but it is essential to act with courage and determination to protect those we love, even in the face of adversity. In addition, the importance of open communication and mutual trust within a family is crucial to overcoming challenges and strengthening emotional bonds.